If it's for more than just one organization, is it a conflict?
Okay, so when I looked at case law, what they state, what it stated, when a counselor was involved in a decision that had to do with a neighborhood that they were in, because it affected the entire neighborhood and not just specifically their house, it was considered not a conflict of interest. So my thought is it's probably the same case if council voted for a blanket across the board for all municipalities. There'd be no conflict.
Even if those organizations are named?
If you name them all individually, so I think by the letter, I think a legal interpretation would be a pretty remote possibility that it would be declared a conflict of interest. However, perception of the public might be different. So I'm not giving you a very clear answer, sorry.
I asked her earlier too, and I got the same rigmarole. It's just like,
Yeah.
he talked in a circle and I didn't learn anything.
Oh, jeez.
But I'm quite willing to do step
I mean, the way I look at it is, if you're a voting member of that board, best recuse, regardless if it's a blanket or not.
And public perception would be you should recuse yourself.
Yeah.
Court survey.
Oh, how's this going to work?
I don't have to step out for anything.
That's good.
Finally,
I don't think you'll have too much of a fight. Hold your live on YouTube.
Is it?
yeah, 7 o'clock. So I'll call the Tuesday, September 8, 2020 regular meeting of council to order. First up on the agenda, 2.1, adoption of this evening's agenda. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette, any additions? All in favor? It's carried. 3.1, public comment. No public comments received, written.
None.
Thank you. 4.1, adoption of the August 11th, 2020 regular meeting of council minutes. Councillor McLean, Councillor Pearson, any errors or omissions arising? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Item 4.2, adoption of the August 11th, 2020 public hearing be adopted as presented. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor McLean, any errors or omissions arising? All in favor? Carried. 4.3, adoption of the August 18th, 2020 special meeting of council be as presented. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette, any errors or omissions? All in favor? Carried. And that the minutes of the August 31, 2020 special meeting of council be adopted as presented. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor McLean, any errors or omissions arising? All in favor? It carries. 7.1, correspondence for action. Valemount Entertainment Society requested council looking for waiving of the community hall. Yes. Waiving of the rental fees of the community hall for the Valemount Entertainment Society AGM to be held on September 15, 2020, subject to facility availability and adherence to Village of Valemount Policy 12, rental of village facilities and property.
Worship.
Pardon?
This just got comments go played because I should recuse myself as a voting board member on the bill.
Thank
You're
you.
assigned, but, sorry, point of order, he's assigned from this council to that.
No, I'm not.
Oh, does that
No,
matter?
it's not.
Oh, okay, so
Don't answer.
my apologies.
Yep, no worries. Thank you.
Do I need to?
One second while the recused member recuses. Councilor McLean, Councilor Blanchette, discussion. Do user groups of municipal facilities have to present COVID safety plans?
Yes, that is a requirement, but we would ask them after this decision.
Cool.
Either way.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Carries. Anything in the green file? Councilor Blanchett?
I'd like to bring number 4, National Farm Care Call to Action. I was hoping we could add our names to the list or prepare our own correspondence on this item.
Was the previous municipality?
Comox.
Comox. No, there was another, there was a Houston, I think,
Okay,
also forwarded.
okay.
How would you like to proceed, Councilor?
I would like to add our names to the list. Makes it easier for staff.
Seconder? Yep. Councilor McLean? Discussion on the motion? All in favor? Carries. Anything else in the info? 9.1, accounts payable. The report for 2020, August 2020 be received. Councilor Blanchett, Councilor Pearson, discussion. All in favor? Carries. 9.2, the 2020 second quarterly budget report be received. Councilor Blanchett, Councilor McLean, any discussion, second quarter? All in favor? Carries. 9.3, permissive tax exemptions. I would recommend that we have a single motion for each group. That way, whether there's perceived or legal conflicts of interest, that members have the opportunity to do so. What is council's wish for permissive tax exemptions, starting with Valemount Area Recreation Development Association, and I need to recuse myself as I am a board member of the board. Councilor McLean, you have the chair.
We want to start with a motion to grant a percentage tax exemption for the first named society, which is the Valemount Area Recreation Development Association. Do we have a motion? Councilor Blanchett.
So I would like to move that, unfortunately, I cannot honestly ask for money from people who have not had any for months and months and months on end. I can't ask homeowners who are trying to pay all of their bills to help chip in for things. I'm hoping that there's some grants that these facilities can access. And I'm hoping that we just do this for a one-year term, as it is sort of a strange year. But I would put to the table that we do 0 this year, unfortunately.
Do we have a seconder?
Wow. I would prefer not to second that.
So the motion dies. How do we wish to proceed?
Just requesting of the motion.
Request another motion.
I would move that we do the 1 year and do a 25% for doing them individually.
Do we have seconder? The motion dies. Well.
Question for clarification. It's my understanding we are doing a blanket percentage for all groups. Is that correct? The way it was presented.
The mayor had asked that it be done individually, each individual person requesting or organization requesting for an exemption be done individually.
So, and as a blanket, I would like to do everybody at zero. Just like we've got businesses that are only just reopening, just rehiring staff. Staff are just only starting to work. Public are just starting back to work if they're working. I mean, there are several different grants out there for different societies. So I would assume that there are some for these nonprofits that they just need to look for that. There's also the grant for the Prince George. There's a through RDF through our director at Every Age.
Yes, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the association. It's offered through Community Futures.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there are several grants out there. But I know that the businesses are all struggling. So to ask them to chip in, it's just, you know, like I still know some people that aren't going back to work. How can we ask them to help? So, we could do like 10%, could we not?
You could give any percentage you want.
How do we feel about a 10% ask?
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
We have a seconder.
Well, this really changes everything from the information we were given, so.
Okay, what?
Do we need a seconder to have discussion? We need a seconder to move into discussion, please.
But then there's no point in the vote members are bound, so.
No action, you could still be able to vote afterwards. And there's still a quorum of council, so there'd still be the chair would still, if there was a tie, the chair would have to vote.
Okay, I will second it to move to discussion.
Discussion, please.
I agree. Councillor Blanchett's reasoning, but with the background information we were given on how this is spread out over the different organizations, because quite frankly, this could also be a death knell for an organization if they get no reduction in property taxes, because they're hurting as well. So
Everybody's hurting, so what do we do, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? So is there any way that we can, as a village, for this? Like, does this have to go through this year? Is there any way, you know, sometimes you can defer things a year?
Oh, I see what you're saying, like
Yeah.
for,
Yeah, is there any way this can be that? Just because this is such an issue that, you know, like we all want to help, but.
technically no, because in order for us to defer it, we would basically be saying there's no, it would be a zero. It would either be 100% or zero, depending on how you looked at it. Because deferring this would imply that we would be able to state they don't need to pay their taxes, and the province hasn't given us that ability to waive that. Just to help out here, just in case this was not clear, keep in mind that the property tax that is exempt is only affecting what property classes that those businesses or organizations are coming from. So, for example, because we're talking about Varda using, for example, they're located in a C zone, a commercial zone. Those taxes are only spread out amongst commercial properties. they're not spread out amongst residential properties within the village. So it would not affect homeowners.
But it will affect commercial,
It
which
will.
are the ones that got shut down.
Yes, and you'd be looking at a difference of, if it were, it'd be like $8 if that were the case for every $100,000 if you went with 100%. If you went down to 25%, it would be $2 per $100,000 assessed value. So just for clarity.
So can I ask a question? So none of these places are on public? Like they're not on residential?
Let's see
Is
here.
anyone on these on residential?
The only one residential.
Bars? Oh, yeah, okay, sorry.
We've had a motion and a second. Further discussion?
So right now the motion is at 10%, is that right? Is that where we are?
Yeah.
10%, okay.
Might add one thing, although it was the mayor's wish that we did a individual, council would rather have it be one vote for all. You could make that motion and then you would call the mayor back in and then that would just be the case. Although it's to be recognized that there's two people here in the room that are sitting on individual boards. It would not be considered a conflict of interest because you would be voting on all properties. So it's not that you're specifically benefiting your specific organization by doing it that way. And that's been made clear in case law.
So
The motion is still on the table.
okay. So we would need to defeat the motion or amend the motion.
So you need to vote on this motion, whether you want to move ahead with it or defeat it. And then after that, if you defeat the motion, then you can make a different motion if you wanted to do a blanket for all.
Call the vote in favor of the motion to give 10% for Varda.
So without raising the hand, then have to call the opposite.
Okay, so do we call the opposite? So to vote against the motion, a show of hands, please. It's defeated.
So then, can I make a motion to have it as a blanket
Yes,
motion for all and bring in the mayor? That's okay.
well,
did you-
yeah,
but
actually, we should pass this motion first. Because his participation hinges on whether or not this is going to be a blanket motion.
Okay. So I would move that we move ahead with a blanket motion for all of these groups.
there's second. Call the vote. Favor? Pass it.
Sorry, I missed the second.
It was Blanchette and Pearson.
What's the good word?
Well, the good word is that we have voted to make this a blanket list of tax exemption percentage wise.
Sure.
So we'll be voting as a block rather than individually for that entire group.
All right. We have a mover on the previous discussion.
No, we're starting from scratch.
All right, so it's council's wish.
So do we go down the same path we did and go from there and have the discussion, or?
So somebody would have to motion what they want as a blanket across the board, and then would move from there.
Councilor,
So I would move a 10% tax exemption for all of the nonprofit organizations.
seconder.
Second.
Councilor McLean seconds on a 10% tax exemption across the board for the listed organizations. Discussion. Councilor. Councilor Blanchett.
I just want to reiterate, just for the mayor's benefit, that in good conscience, I can't ask people that had to close businesses and let go of staff to help chip in a whole bunch of money. They don't have any. There isn't any extra money. None of us have it. So that's, I mean, originally I had asked for 0. And so I think that 10% is fair. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of grants that these places can access to help them get through the year. And I'd also ask that this just be a 1-year term, just because we're dealing with something so unfamiliar, that next year we go through this again on a hopefully a better light. So that was my reasoning.
I'm hearing an amendment to the motion.
I would add that we have a 1-year, that this be a 1-year term.
Second on the amendment. Councilor Pearson, any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor on the amendment of 1 year? Carried. Back to the motion as amended, further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Carries. I'm sorry. Opposed? Looks like you're abstaining. Very good. It carries. Valemount Community Forest, under 9.4, Valemount Community Forest and Valemount Industrial Park annual meetings. Recommendation here that the following annual schedule be set to conduct the required meetings for the village's 2 municipal corporations. So for the Valemount Industrial Park annual general meeting, annual public meeting, and the annual meeting of partners to take place during the first regular council meeting in June of each year. Separate motions, Ms. Shepherd. So on first recommendation, Valemount Industrial Park, first regular meeting in June. Councilor Blanchett, Councilor Pearson, discussion. All in favor? That carries. Excuse me. Valemount Community Forest annual general meeting, annual public meeting, and the annual meeting of partners to take place the second regular council meeting in June of each year. Councilor Pearson, Councilor Blanchett, any discussion? All in favor? It carries. 9.5, Wood Stove Exchange Program. Recommendation here that staff be directed to submit a proposal to the Ministry of Environment Wood Stove Exchange Program. Councilor Blanchett, Councilor Pearson, discussion. All in favor? Carries. 9.6, Civic First Nation invitation to participate in official community plan update. Recommendation here though that we send a letter to Civic First Nation requesting their participation. Councilor Blanchett, Councilor Pearson, discussion. All in favor? Carries. Under bylaws and policies 10.1, zoning and official community plan bylaw amendment for 1300 2nd Avenue. First recommendation here for the Village of Valemount zoning bylaw 610-2007, amendment bylaw number 829-2020 be given first and second reading. Councilor Pearson, Councilor Blanchett, any discussion? First and second reading. All in favor? Carries. And 2, that the Village of Valemount official community plan bylaw number 595-2006, amendment bylaw number 830-2020 be given first and second reading. Councilor Pearson, Councilor Blanchett, any discussion? All in favor? Carries. Council reports. Councilor Pearson.
August 12th, I had Operation Lifesaver conference call. Talking about rail safety in general and upcoming rail safety week, which I can't remember which week it is at this point. August 18th, special or tourism Valemount meeting, followed by a special council meeting that night. August 31st, special council meeting, and earlier today, first a tourism Valemount meeting, followed by a CBRC CCC meeting, user group meeting towards the upcoming winter season at the arena.
Awesome. Councilor Blanchett?
We had a special meeting on the 18th and the 31st, and I had a housing meeting on the 20th. That is it.
Awesome. Councilor McLean?
I have nothing to report other than the 2 special council meetings.
Thank you. August 13th, I had a meeting with Councilor Bertie and Joe Bogdan of PGDR. August 18th, I had 3 meetings that day. One first, Columbia Basin Trust, our future planning outreach for elected officials. Later that day, a briefing with Valemount Emergency Services, and then again, a special meeting in council joining you all. On the 19th, I had a Zoom meeting with St. First Nation Councillor Ron Blanco Jr. and Al Chorney, who's the general manager of the St. Resources Group. Later that day, I had a fire board meeting. August 20th, had a regional district board meeting and a regional hospital board meeting. August 31st, really cool, the Canadian Rangers had a convoy come through. So one of their leaders from Victoria led an exercise, so it bid them welcome, and then we had a bit of a discussion down at the George Hicks Regional Park about how municipalities in general were dealing with COVID and how basically an information exchange on how Canadian Rangers can help municipalities and vice versa. August 24th, another briefing with Valemount Emergency Services. August 26th, an in-person meeting with Mr. Chorney from the St. Resources Group. August 27th, Northern Health Authority briefing, basically around some of the more remote outbreaks that are happening on I-5I, northeastern BC. Again, the important message: viruses don't travel, people do. I think it was a family reunion up north that somebody was able to contract COVID. On the 31st, I had an interview with CFGC of Kamloops regarding the TMX worker accommodation facility. And that was stemming from their interview with Mayor Blackwell of Clearwater. He and I have been back and forth. We're a little bit ahead of the game in terms of our campus up and running. There's not quite there yet. How are things rolling out on this section versus their section? It's been really good. Just keeping in contact with our southern partners. Later that day, meeting with you all, special meeting of council. September 1st, briefing with Valemount Emergency Services. September 2nd, caribou herd planning, not head planning, herd planning. Update more or less around the herd with the Social First Nation in West Moberly. Another Northern Health Authority briefing on September the 3rd, this time around overdoses, particularly here in the north. We're seeing a lot of more than just recreational use of opioids than we are in the more populated areas of the province. And then today, I joined Councillor Pearson, one of the CCC members that we have, in an initial planning meeting with RDFFG and the user groups of the New Valley Rec Center. Motion to receive reports. Councillor Pearson, Councillor McLean, any questions of the reporting members of council? All in favor, receive. Carries. Item 14.1, notice to proceed in camera. Recommendation here, the council proceed to an in-camera meeting for consideration of one item for section 91K of the community charter to discuss matters related to K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at the preliminary stages and that, in the view of council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Councilor Blanchette, Councilor McLean. All in favor? Carries.